today I really want to talk you through how I see fiber shaping the ISP model for voice and data delivery. And I think what's important is that we start understanding what the drivers are for an ISP in a data world. You know, what's the market going to do over the next 5 years that's going to have significant impact in terms of how we actually build our networks. And if we have a look at this data, Cisco did quite an analysis towards the end of last year, whereby they said 88% of all data traffic is used by consumers. And it's important that we get an understanding of what those consumers, sorry, can we go to the next slide? Okay, I've got it the wrong way, it's my fault. Okay, and what's important is to actually understand what those consumers are using data traffic for. And Cisco was quite nice, is that they divided and they sorted it really 5 key themes. The first was file sharing, and this is generally your peer-to-peer type applications. They're free downloading. The next was internet video. What's classified in internet video is your YouTube, it's your Netflix, it's your Hulu, it's all your on-demand video content. Next was the traditional ISP services, which is web, email, data. The next one was online gaming, which is becoming a lot more in terms of gamers out there and a big requirement. And finally was voice over IP. And what became quite key, you want to be there? And what was quite interesting is how Cisco saw the data requirements growing in the space. And as you can see on the top line is that they're actually predicting over the next 5 years that it's going to increase almost 4 times the amount of data consumption that actually occurs today. Okay. 2 interesting spaces that I thought was quite interesting was internet video. How they see internet video is going to consume 56% of all data requirements. And another key one is online gaming. Well, online gaming doesn't use a lot of data. Okay? It's still seeing the biggest growth in that it's almost a 10-fold increase in the amount of data that is actually consumed. And the reason why I find these quite interesting is that they're 2 different types of usage of the internet. The one is very, very data specific in terms of large volumes, and the other one really brings in latency. It really is all about user experience. But also what's key is I actually think Cisco's got this wrong. I actually think it's going to be almost double that. And the reasons why I think that is in the online video, in the internet video space. If we have a look at something that we all know and we're all quite fond of, being YouTube, is YouTube currently say that they currently stream about 4 billion hours of video a month. And they say that that's growing exponentially. Another key stat is that YouTube says that they currently stream 70% of their content out of the United States. Okay, and why that is key is because if you look at the other services like Netflix and Hulu, which are really, really confined to those countries because of legal rights, once those regulations start becoming a lot more relaxed and you can actually get those services in other countries, you now expand yourself to a market that traditionally wasn't there. And if we started doing the maths and seeing 70% of that traffic coming outside the United States, I believe it'll have a fundamental change. Another interesting stat about YouTube is that I don't know if you know, but the most viewed video on YouTube at the moment is Gangnam Style. Okay, Gangnam Style's been viewed 1.6 billion times, and it was only uploaded in June last year. Okay. What's also interesting about this is that Psy, who wrote Gangnam Style, who actually sings Gangnam Style, okay, it took him almost 2 months to achieve 100 million hits on Gangnam Style. And he released another video just last month, and it took him to achieve the same thing in just 4 days. So we're seeing a big adoption and a big acceleration when it comes to users adopting online video. The next thing that I mentioned was that online gaming world. Okay, just before we get to online gaming, is another trend that I feel that's coming along. It's not just the actual consumption of users. Okay, it's not just the users consuming data, but it also comes in terms of the creation of that data. Okay, and we're starting to see new trends, new fads coming out here, like everyone knows about the Harlem Shake. Okay, and what is key to note is that in February, the Harlem Shake went from virtually insignificant uploads to 15,000 users actually uploading Harlem Shake content onto the internet. And this is globally. Okay? So it's not just when it comes to video, is looking at the actual consumption of the video, but it's also about the amount of users that are actually generating this content. The next thing I spoke to you about was online gaming and how key this is becoming. This is quite an interesting stat, is Microsoft just launched their Xbox One just recently. I think it was this month. Okay? And the Xbox 360 was really around 8 years technology that has been around, and Microsoft in those 8 years only managed to sell 75 million devices. Okay? They're now predicting that this Xbox One is going to sell 1 billion devices. Okay, it's more than 10 times the amount of devices that they managed to sell in the last 8 years. And that is significant. Okay? The reason why they believe they're going to achieve that 1 billion instead of the 100 million that we're aiming for with the 360 is because the Xbox One does a lot more than just gaming. It completes the whole internet experience inside the home. Another trend we need to understand as an ISP is really around mobile broadband. Okay? And if we look at the research that's been done, over the next 5 years, they believe that the revenues that a mobile operator generates out of mobile broadband is going to surpass the revenues that they achieve out of mobile voice. And that is significant. And one of the reasons why it is significant is because if you have a look at these mobile networks, they're traditionally built to handle voice delivery. Yes, they've gone through the 2G, the 3G, and ultimately into the 4G upgrades. But it's a completely different world when you look at data, running data on a voice network. So we look at how that's actually progressed, and what becomes key is it's quite interesting to find out that there are already countries that have managed to achieve mobile broadband revenues higher than mobile data than higher than mobile voice revenues. And the first one was actually done last year in Japan. What's interesting is that this year we're expecting Argentina to achieve it, and next year we've seen the United States and the United Kingdom to actually come on board and actually making more money out of mobile data than actually out of mobile voice. But the one that I really enjoy and that's really close to my heart is Kenya is looking to achieve it in 2016. Okay? And one of the reasons why they're going to achieve it is because it's been one of the most prolific advancements in terms of fiber deployments on the African continent. Now, the mobile operators need to understand what they're going to be doing with this data. And they need to understand exactly how they're going to handle it. And another trend that we're starting to see is Wi-Fi offloading. Okay? Currently, if you have a look at it, about half the amount of mobile data is being offloaded onto a Wi-Fi hotspot. Okay? And this excludes the amount of data that you generally surf on a traditional hotspot. This is just mobile offloading. Okay? What Cisco believes is that over the next 5 years, more than twice the amount of data is going to be offloaded through Wi-Fi than it will be served through the mobile data networks. And what's key about all of these trends and all of these points I've been trying to make is that to get this right, fiber deployment becomes key. Fiber deployment is going to become the number one agenda for any ISP out there. Okay? Be it the mobile ISP, be it the traditional fixed line ISP. Okay. And we're starting to actually see this starting to happen. Okay? We're starting to see fiber deployments happen. We noticed, as before, we've always seen cable maps, and we're starting to get it right when it comes to Africa. So if we have a look 5 years ago, the African continent was really serviced through 2 undersea cable systems. The old SAT3 SAFE, which tried to go around. It didn't go up the east coast of Africa, but it went around Africa. And Atlantis 2, which few people know about, which actually connected northwest Africa with South America. In the last 5 years, we've seen at least 8 deployments of undersea cable systems. So much so that we can actually now see a complete ring around the African continent. So I give the tick box in terms of actually deploying that fiber backhaul on an international level, getting it to the shores of the African continent. And we know that more can be done, okay, specifically from lower latency routes, from shorter distances, from more redundancy that can actually be achieved. But I think that the next focus area, and we're starting to see it come through, is the terrestrial fiber deployments that are starting to be done within the African continent. Taking this undersea cable capacity from the shores of our continent inland to the metropolitan areas. And we're starting to see Africa start to become a light. The next trend I think that's going to happen is really about taking it from those metropolitans and getting it down to those end users. Getting it as close as possible so that the users are able to actually, on the African continent, get access to those trends that we're seeing and I showed before. And I expect that to happen over the next 5 years. If we just look in terms of the capacity that's now suddenly landed in Africa over the last 5 years, this capacity has gone from, in 2008, it being very, very insignificant, to right now where we stand, sitting at top there at 18,000, I think that's gigabits per second. Okay, it's a lot of amount of capacity. So the point that I'm trying to make, and the point that I wanted to try and discuss with you today, is how is fiber going to shape the ISP business model when it comes to trying to cope with this massive demand coming there? And the first thing is the most important, is cost reduction. We're starting to see all this scale, we're starting to see all the scale benefit and all this utilization. What fiber brings us is that we get to maximize those economies of scale in order to get cost reduction, so we can bring more users onto the network, so that we can serve more data. The next thing is broadband penetration. Is as we see these fiber networks start to roll out, and as they pass new cities that traditionally weren't covered through broadband access, we'll start seeing how fiber starts to actually encourage broadband adoption. And it might not be that last mile. That last mile might still be serviced through wireless technologies, but we'll start seeing fiber getting closer and closer in terms of that aggregation point. Another point is it's going to create global business opportunities. We know the world we live in. We know all the market pressures that exist, and we know how globalization is affecting this world economy. And every company is trying to adopt a centralized delivery model while still control that regional development. Can only be achieved through a fiber network. Because when you try and deliver those mission-critical centralized applications, you need something with the latency, you need something with the capacity, and you need something with the reliability of fiber. Another major drive is that we're starting to see how fiber is unlocking these landlocked countries. So a lot of countries in Africa which don't have access to the sea. And we're starting to see how fiber is starting to actually open up those countries that create new market opportunities for ISPs. And the last, and what I feel is the most important, how fiber is going to enable the ISP to really move into the future, is through product innovation. We know, and we've all heard the buzzwords before in terms of cloud, unified communications as a service, is that the biggest limitation and the biggest bottlenecks when it comes to deploying those services has always been the bandwidth capacity and the reliability around that bandwidth. Fiber answers that. And we'll start seeing, specifically on the African continent, as fiber starts to be rolled out, how product innovation, not just in the ISP world, and as they develop the unified communications as a service, as they develop voice over IP offerings, but we'll start seeing Africa wake up in terms of being that content provider and start exporting the actual content out to the first world countries. And I really believe that the biggest acceleration that we're going to see is through product innovation. So that's it from me. I hope I've managed to share a couple of insights and a couple of thinkings that we as an ISP see how fiber will actually drive demand in the ISP world. And thank you very much for your time.